Have you ever wondered how a small act of kindness can change not just one life, but many? Sometimes, the people we help in silence are connected to something far bigger than we could ever imagine. And tonight, I want you to hear a story that will touch your heart deeply. But before we begin, if this story moves you, even just a little, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive, spreading love and hope to millions. Now, let's dive in. It was a freezing evening in the city. The wind howled through the narrow streets, carrying with it the smell of roasted chestnuts and fresh bread from the bakery on the corner. For most people, it was just another day winding down. But for Amelia, a young single mother, it was yet another battle. Her 5-year-old daughter, Lily, clung to her hand, her cheeks pink from the cold, her tiny coat too thin to keep out the bite of winter. Amelia had just finished her shift at the diner, exhausted, her back aching, but with only a few dollars left in her pocket, barely enough for groceries. As they walked, Amelia noticed a man sitting by the steps of the old library. His clothes were ragged, his hair unkempt, and his eyes dull with hunger. A paper cup rested at his feet, empty except for a few coins. He was shivering, his thin hands rubbing together for warmth. Lily tugged at her mother's sleeve and whispered, "Mommy, he looks so hungry." Amelia stopped. She didn't have much. In fact, she barely had enough to feed herself and her daughter that night. But she looked at the man again, and her heart clenched. "Sir," Amelia said softly, bending down, "have you eaten today?" The man shook his head slowly, ashamed to answer. Amelia reached into her worn purse, pulling out the last few crumpled bills she had. She thought of the loaf of bread and milk she planned to buy for Lily. But then she looked at the man's trembling body, his hollow cheeks. "Come with us," Amelia said gently. "There's a small diner a few blocks away. Let me buy you something warm." The old man hesitated, his pride fighting with his need. But Lily smiled up at him and reached for his hand. "Please," she said, "come eat with us." That was enough. He followed quietly. At the diner, Amelia ordered him a hot bowl of soup, bread, and coffee. As the man ate, tears welled in his eyes. He looked at Amelia, whispering, "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." "Because someday," Amelia replied softly, "I'd want someone to do the same for me, or for my daughter, if we were in your place." The old man bowed his head, too emotional to speak. For the first time in days, maybe weeks, he felt human again. Hours later, Amelia tucked Lily into bed in their tiny apartment. Her stomach growled, she hadn't eaten herself, but she pushed the thought aside. At least her daughter was warm and safe. She didn't know that her kindness that evening had set something extraordinary into motion. The next morning, as Amelia was leaving for work, a sleek black car pulled up in front of her building. A tall man in an expensive suit stepped out, his expression urgent. His presence immediately drew attention. He looked like someone powerful, someone untouchable. He walked straight to Amelia. "Are you Amelia?" he asked firmly. "Yes," she replied nervously, clutching her purse. The man's eyes softened, and to her surprise, they filled with tears. "I'm Daniel Carter. My father, the man you helped last night, that was him." Amelia froze. She hadn't even asked the old man's name. "Your father?" she whispered. "Yes," Daniel said, his voice trembling. "He disappeared from home 2 days ago. He struggles with memory sometimes, and I feared the worst. But when I found him this morning, he told me everything, about the woman and little girl who gave him warmth, food, and dignity when no one else even looked at him. That woman was you." Amelia's eyes widened. She couldn't believe it. She had thought she was just helping a stranger. Daniel continued, "You don't understand what this means to me. My father is everything to me. And you treated him with more kindness than people who knew him for years. Amelia, you saved him." Amelia's eyes welled with tears. I didn't do anything special. I just couldn't leave him hungry. Daniel shook his head. You did more than you know. And I can't let your kindness go unanswered. That day marked the beginning of a new chapter in Amelia's life. Daniel wasn't just a man in a suit, he was the CEO of one of the largest companies in the city. A man who had everything money could buy, but who had been reminded by Amelia's selflessness of what truly mattered, humanity. He offered Amelia a stable job at his company, one that matched her skills but also allowed her to take care of Lily. At first, she refused, too proud, too afraid it was charity, but Daniel looked at her firmly. This isn't charity. This is gratitude. My father said you treated him like a person, not a burden. You reminded me of what I sometimes forget, people matter more than profits. Please, Amelia, let me do this. Tears streamed down her face as she accepted. Months passed, and Amelia's life transformed. She and Lily no longer worried about where their next meal would come from. She worked hard at her new job, earning respect not just from Daniel, but from everyone around her. And as time went on, something deeper blossomed between her and Daniel. Not because of wealth, not because of gratitude, but because they both shared the same values, compassion, humility, and love. One evening, as they all sat together, Amelia, Lily, Daniel, and his father, the old man smiled warmly.